Students often ask me, what's the easiest ToK exhibition prompt? To which I give them some long answer about, it depends on the student, it depends on the student's experience. A prompt that's easy for you might be difficult for another person, and vice versa. But then I got to thinking, well, what if we could quantify the easiest ToK exhibition prompt? What if we could standardize it? What if we could universalize it? So that's what we did. Welcome to ToK Today. I'm Daniel, and today we're quantifying the easiest and the hardest ToK exhibition prompts. We're going to look at from the most difficult prompt to the easiest. In order to do this, we have to operationalize what makes a prompt difficult or easy. To do this, I broke the challenge of a ToK exhibition prompt into 3 criteria. The first criteria I've called 3-part closed-ended-ish structure, and that's, does the prompt lend itself to an easy 3-part structure? The exhibition is of 3 objects, therefore an easier prompt will be closed-ended and therefore can be answered in 3 main ways. Prompts that do have 3 main answers are easier to answer than prompts that are more open-ended. So, for example, prompt number 2, are some types of knowledge more useful than others, is easily responded to with 3 possible answers. Yes, some types of knowledge is more useful than others. No, some types of knowledge is not more useful than others. And maybe some types of knowledge might sometimes be more useful than other types of knowledge. That third option is the middle option between yes and no, obviously. Now, on the other hand, we could look at prompt number 1, what counts as knowledge? And this is an open-ended question. It doesn't easily lend itself to an easy 3-part main answer of yes, no, and it depends. Therefore, on this first criteria, prompt number 2 is easier than prompt number 1. The second criteria that I've looked at, I'm going to call abstract to concrete continuum. Some of the prompts ask about very abstract ideas, while some of them ask about more concrete or tangible ideas. I think that generally the more abstract the question, the harder the question is, and the more concrete the question, the easier it is. So, for example, prompt number 7, what are the implications of having or not having knowledge, is a very abstract title, and therefore it's difficult to answer according to this criteria. But on the other hand, prompt number 10, what challenges are raised by the dissemination and communication of information, it's very concrete, and therefore it's fairly easy to answer according to this criteria. And the third criteria that I'm using is the difficult or abstruse to clear wording of the question. Some of the prompts are worded in a very complicated way, a very abstruse way, whilst others have clear wording. The word abstruse means very complicated, and in itself, abstruse is abstruse. Anyway, on with this criteria. The more complicated the wording of the prompt, the more difficult it is to answer correctly. Conversely, the clearer the wording of the prompt, the easier it is to answer correctly. So, for example, prompt number 13, how can we know that current knowledge is an improvement upon past knowledge, has very complicated wording. The prompt has 2 parts to it. Firstly, how can we know? And then secondly, that current knowledge is an improvement upon past knowledge. There's a lot here for a student to deal with. What types of improvement are we talking about? What constitutes past knowledge and what constitutes current knowledge? And most complicated of all, how can we know something? And that makes this prompt very difficult according to this criteria. However, on the other hand, prompt number 2, are some types of knowledge more useful than others, is very clearly worded. It's direct, it only has 1 clause, and it only has 1.5 ToK ideas to deal with. That's the usefulness of knowledge and a sort of half an idea about different types of knowledge. Now, this makes the prompt far easier according to this criteria. So, we're now going to go on and assess each ToK exhibition prompt against these 3 criteria. That's closed-ended three-part structure, abstract to concrete continuum, and complex to clear wording continuum. And this will give us a total easiness score for each exhibition prompt. And I've marked each criteria out of 30, giving us a total easy or difficult mark out of 30 for each prompt. And this then allows us to order the prompts from easy to hard in a sort of league table, as you can see on the screen at the moment. Now, this table is linked in the video description. So now we're going to look at the 5 hardest prompts and the 5 easiest prompts using my methodology. However, I must stress that these ratings are only the product of my very subjective criteria and my very subjective application of those subjective criteria to the prompt. This would not stand up to any scientific tests of replicability or inter-rater reliability. This is an excellent example of how the design and application of methodology determines the knowledge produced by that very methodology. So don't be swayed by my judgment if you want to do a specific prompt because it interests you or you think it's easier than the other prompts, then just go for it. Take no notice of what I say. This is only for fun, so let's get on with the fun. We're going to start with the 5 most difficult TOK prompts, according to my criteria. So the 5th most difficult TOK exhibition prompt, according to my criteria, is prompt number 38, to what extent is certainty attainable? This prompt gets low ratings in all 3 categories. If you were to choose this prompt, you would have to be pretty certain of your understanding of certainty. The 4th most difficult TOK exhibition prompt is prompt number 13. How can we know that current knowledge is an improvement upon past knowledge? The wording of this prompt is particularly challenging. You have to deal with both the improvement of current knowledge upon past knowledge and the sticky idea of how do we know something. However, if you've chosen this prompt, despair not. I have a full explanation of this prompt and an example of how to answer it available for free as a video and my blog linked above. The 3rd most difficult TOK exhibition prompt is actually one of the most popular prompts, and that's prompt number 20. What is the relationship between personal experience and knowledge? It's a fairly abstract question with complicated wording. It's asking about a relationship between 2 things, rather than directly asking about the things themselves. And if you've picked this prompt, you can also benefit from a free video linked above and a blog post that I've made on the TOK Today website that unpicks this sticky little prompt and helps you to answer it. The 2nd most difficult TOK exhibition prompt is prompt 7. What are the implications of having or not having knowledge? Now, this prompt just makes my brain jump in complicated gymnastic twists. The prompt requires you to think about what it means to have knowledge or not to have knowledge, and then it requires you to consider the implications of one of those states. So you have to have a pretty good understanding of what's meant by the term implications, which I also happen to have made a video about, linked above, and there are actually fairly straightforward ways to answer this prompt, but they may only become clear to you if you're very good at TOK or you're fortunate enough to have a very good TOK teacher. And now we come to our most difficult TOK exhibition prompt. According to my ratings criteria and fairly subjective application of those subjective criteria, the most difficult TOK exhibition prompt is, drumroll, prompt number 25. How can we distinguish between knowledge, belief, and opinion? Now, this prompt is a tricky little trickster. It's not asking you to define knowledge, belief, and opinion, which would be hard enough, but it's actually asking you, how can you distinguish between knowledge, belief, and opinion? And that, my friends, in my opinion, is no easy task.
What?
So, on a happier note, let's now move on to the 5 easiest TOK exhibition prompts. Let's just throw in the usual cautionary warning that this is subjective, it's just my view, don't be swayed by it, it's just fun. Let's get on with the fun. The fifth easiest ToK exhibition prompt, according to my subjective criteria applied in a subjective way, is prompt number 12. Is bias inevitable in the production of knowledge? Now, it's got a slightly tricky idea of inevitability in there, but it has an easy closed-ended three-part structure. Yes, bias is inevitable in the production of knowledge. No, bias is not inevitable in the production of knowledge. And maybe bias is inevitable in the production of knowledge, and it's very clearly worded. The fourth easiest ToK exhibition prompt, according to my ratings, is exhibition prompt number 10. What are the challenges raised by the dissemination and communication of knowledge? Now, whilst this prompt is open-ended, it's also the most concrete and most tangible of all of the prompts, and it's very clearly written, and I've seen a lot of good examples of students who've written this prompt. The third easiest ToK exhibition prompt is prompt number 9. Are some types of knowledge less open to interpretation than others? And it has a lovely three-part closed-ended structure. Yes, some types of knowledge are more open to interpretation. No, some types of knowledge are not more open to interpretation. And it depends. Maybe some types of knowledge are more open to interpretation than others. Now, whilst you may have to deal with the idea of different types of knowledge and the potential for interpretation, this question is very clearly written. The second easiest ToK exhibition prompt is prompt number 11. Can new knowledge change established values and beliefs? It's got a nice closed-ended structure, yes, no, and it depends. It's very clear, it's straightforward, and it's absolutely brimming with objects that could be used to illustrate the knowledge arguments. And now we come to the easiest ToK exhibition prompt according to the rather subjective ToK Today exhibition criteria. And the easiest ToK exhibition prompt is, of course, prompt number 2. Are some types of knowledge more useful than others? It scores highly in all 3 of our categories, and it has lots of lovely knowledge arguments that could be illustrated using a veritable treasure trove of objects from which you can choose. So there we have it. You can see the whole league table of prompts from the link in the video description. Did you agree with my ratings? Have I unfairly credited a seriously difficult prompt, really overlooked a really easy prompt? Then just let me know in the comments on this video. If you want more help with your ToK exhibition, then check out all of the resources, both free and paid, at the toktoday.com link in the video description. And remember to like, comment and subscribe on this video. Thanks very much for watching. Stay TOK-tastic, my friends.